Welcome, everyone, to Two Guys in Hockey Talk. My name is Pavel the Cat with my wonderful co-host.
Yep, my name is Evan, Rev Runners, guys. You can follow me at Rev and Ev or my buddy here, the Cat, at hockey_2. And we're back with season 6, episode 6. So hopefully this isn't a spooky episode. It's 6-6. Actually, in hockey, 6-6 stands for Mario Lemieux, my most favorite hockey player of all time. So I think that's a good sign going into today. So let me just update everybody really quick. We're going to explain a few things about our show. If you're just catching us live right now, we did have head U.S. scout for the Everett Silvertips, Michael Devellano, was going to be joining us today. He's not going to be able to join us. There's just a few things just with his health and stuff, so he just needs to take the evening off. We will rebook him. He's promised to come back on and jump in. I did ask him. I haven't gone to my stuff. I've asked him some questions on their phenom rookie that was the #1 overall pick, exceptional draft into the WHL, Landon DuPont, who, by the way, has 8 points, I believe, in 6 games.
Yeah,
8 points in 6
5
games.
or 6.
I mean, that's amazing. So, but I've asked him for a little bit of insight. I'm not sure if he got a chance or was feeling well. We'll be able to talk about that. So why don't you go ahead and let everybody know a little bit about where they can follow us and so forth.
We have a website at twoguysinhockeytalk.com. Feel free to go there. There are ongoing articles that are posted there throughout the week. Go check it out. There's the weekly update I do. There's the KHL articles created by our very own KHL writer, Patrick Conaway, who does a great job. Evan recently did a great article himself about the rise of Demidov. Was it you or someone else?
That was me.
Yeah, and so that was really wonderful. A great read. Go check it out. And we're always posting there. Go follow us on YouTube at Two Guys in Hockey Talk. Give us a follow. We appreciate it. We are on Facebook where we post a lot of stories and things going on there. It's always great. And you can follow Evan at Rev and Ev or me at hockey_2. We are always chatting on Twitter/X. We love hearing from you guys. We love getting into fun and friendly and respectable debates, but we do it without name calling. That's what we do. So that is kind of our shtick. Make sure to give us a follow. You can always go back to previous episodes. We have a ton of great guests, former guests that have come on. And we're continually gathering more to come on the show this season and for years to come, because you're not getting rid of us that easily. Right, Evan?
That's right. And I just updated Pavel a little bit earlier. So those of you that have been reading some of our articles, get ready, because we have potentially 5 new writers joining us in the next week to 2 weeks as the season takes off here. So one of the things, and if you are interested in writing articles on a specific team, now that could be for your junior teams, that could be for an NHL team. The one thing is we don't want more than 2 writers on an NHL team. And I'm happy to tell one of our good friends, I don't know if he's got around yet. I haven't read the comment section, but Kyle Edwards, we have 2 guys that are ready to come in and write on the Boston Bruins, who have done writing in the past and written on the Bruins, as well as we have a Penguins, potentially a Los Angeles Kings writer. And for those of you that are into fantasy hockey, that are into picking your players and maybe sports betting, now we're not advertising the sports betting, but we're going to give you opportunity to actually someone who actually understands it for NBA, NFL, and is going to do some articles of telling you kind of the best bets of the week that will be able to come up. So we're going to have some really interesting stuff. So you're going to need to make sure, go and bookmark our website, twoguysinhockeytalk.com. Make sure you go there. And then in the future, one of the things that I'd like to do, Pavel, is see some of our writers to do some of their articles in short vids on our YouTube channel so that we can post them on some of our media feeds.
100%. It's always wonderful to have new people partnering with us, connecting with us, and we always want to hear everyone's different perspective on the game of hockey. Now, Evan, we got to get into the news of the world of hockey because lots is happening. The NHL has begun. Now, it did begin over the weekend, last weekend, with Buffalo and the Devils facing off, with the Buffalo Sabres already in panic mode, losing 2 in Czechia, to the Czech Republic. But North America, we have started the games. We had some big games yesterday. And the one big one, Evan, as you know, is the Utah Hockey Club. They have begun. They won It was an eventful game, 5-2 versus Chicago Blackhawks and Connor Bedard. I like Chicago with what they did, but they were no match for what Utah brought. And Mr. Dylan Gunther, a local Edmonton Oil King, who signed that big shiny new contract just recently, scores the first ever history goal for the Utah. So for all of you keeping up with the trivia, that's right there.
I was gonna say, you said foist. I was gonna go, are you Elmer Fudd tonight? The foist one is that a Utahian statement?
Maybe it's a Utahian statement.
Wasn't that an exciting game though? I mean, watching the Utah game there, I was still working and I had it up on my big screen, my 32-inch on the side of my 28-inch screen in front of me, doing my work like this. And I'm trying to do like literally, if you can't see that, my eyes kept turning to the screen because I was trying to watch it. I was impressed. I was impressed with the people. It's you named it when you said, let's talk about the Utah experience, you'd said tonight. And so one thing that I want to kind of just put this aside, I see a lot of people commenting, oh, what a terrible stadium, the arena, the seating, because they have what's called these partial viewing seats. They call them one-goal view seats. And a one-goal view seat essentially is on the ends, and there's about 6,000 seats. So they have 16,000 seats. 10,000 have excellent view. That's still double what Mullet could even take. And they sold out, by the way. Their season tickets are good. They leave a few thousand just for locals. But those 6,000, you can't see in front of you down low, and you can see out at about the hash marks. So it's a little bit more constructed, but it's $19 a ticket. And their big screen, if you see it for the Utah Jazz, it's actually an angled screen. It's kind of a mix between a regular Jumbotron and like the Kraken use with their triangle. So anyway, I thought it was good. What I have been told, and talking to a few people there that were at the game, people outside of Utah have no idea how loud that arena is. ESPN did not do justice with it when it came to sharing the noise. For some reason, they only put it up during the playoffs. But they say it is loud and it's electric. And it was a good atmosphere, Pavel, for that first night of hockey.
It was great. It was good to see Ryan Smith, the owner, cheering his team on, wearing a jersey, sitting with the commissioner. Now, my only critique, it's not much of a rant, but, I see Mr. Gary Bettman, very happy with Utah. Well, he was one of the last ones to really approve this move. Let's be honest. He kept keeping Arizona where it was. And I understand why. But, to be like, oh, this is great. This is a wonderful experience. Well, that's a very good 180 there, Mr. Bettman. I could understand why you're happy about this. But this will bring additional revenue, not only for the NHL. It will bring down escrow. It's going to increase potentially the cap next year, and years to come beyond, provided nothing global happens, let's say that. And
we're good.
It was fun. It was exciting. I think the name, as people have kind of rumbled about, is going to be Yeti. But I can understand you're going to wait a season before you announce it. I did, however, Evan, and I want to get your take, enjoy the fact that they announced Mr. Clayton Keller as the first ever captain of that franchise, and Lawson Krause being an assistant captain. Your thoughts on Clayton Keller stepping into that leadership role and what he brings to that team and that franchise?
Wasn't that a good choice? I mean, if you think about who is going to carry it, the way Clayton has come on very well, represents really well. And he was one of the first guys that jumped in there like a leader, because I think a lot of people think that leadership is just on the ice, right? And they forget what happens off. Clayton was awesome and down in Arizona, down in Phoenix area, but he has jumped into Salt Lake City like nothing, shown his welcome, it's arranging things for everybody. And he's a star player too for them that they're going to be able. I like his personality. And Lawson Krause, who's going to argue with that guy?
Yeah.
I don't know if the refs. Yeah, are the refs going to argue with him? And might I say, it's the first time I saw people cheer and say, "Yay!" when Gary Bettman was announced.
They're like the Vegas fans; they don't know yet. They'll learn. Well, but it was exciting hockey. It was good to see.
Yeah.
And I know you wanted to touch on a little bit about Arizona. So did you want to get into the fact that the Vegas Golden Knights are trying to draw some of the Arizona fans now into their market. Given that, I know that some people posted on Twitter that it's a little bit bittersweet, the fact that there is no Coyote hockey, even though it could be back in the future. Your thoughts on Vegas and their enticement of new fans?
Well, and they're really just capitalizing on saying, let's give hockey to the hockey fans of Arizona because they're another desert state, right? Because you got Nevada as a desert state. So why not try? And I think this was a smart hockey move. They've shown the hockey minds, McCrimmon and the gang and all of them that are down there. They know what they're doing with their marketing. Who's their president again? He came from Washington. He stepped aside from McCrimmon. Man. This is terrible.
Not Kelly McCrimmon. No, not Kelly McCrimmon, because he came over.
Okay, guys, we're having like a freeze right now, a brain freeze. Who is the president of hockey operations that started the team as the GM as well? If you guys got that, throw that there in the comments for it. But anyway, he's obviously the one in charge of the entertainment group and stuff like that down in Arizona. I think Pavel's looking it up too.
Yes, I am.
But so anyway, what's happened is Vegas has started their own streaming free service. They've extended into Arizona now when they knew the Coyotes were leaving. You can catch, ready guys, 61 of those games in the Phoenix district. So in the Phoenix metro area, you can collect 61 games of watching of the Las Vegas Golden Knights. And if you're outside of the metro, you will still get 58. So there's only 3 games you won't get all throughout the Arizona state. So I think that that's a wonderful way to capitalize. Did you find the name of who the president is?
I am still looking at George McPhee.
George McPhee. I knew he came from Washington. That's what kind of got me thinking. Do you know, that's a whole other conversation. Washington, they sure provide a lot of people to other teams in management. Some of their former general managers and head coaches, don't they? Including Nashville right now, even.
Yeah,
Dirty Bruce.
There's a lot of players that come over. You look at somebody like Spencer Carberry, who came over from Toronto and got his chance as a head coach and had one of the better power plays, even though they were a bit more of a slower team last season. And defensively they weren't the best, but they made it work. So it was pretty good. Now, you talked about the streaming service in there, which is pretty incredible because I think a lot more teams are turning to that. There's different teams, whether it's free or a certain paid thing, like the Edmonton Oilers have the Oilers Plus, and you can get inside access to the team and things like that. I think it's pretty good. But I want to kind of transition over to Seattle because they came out strong, but they lost the game versus St. Louis. There was some history made there. Now, we know the announcement was made, but officially there was some history made with that team. And Jessica Campbell got her official coaching debut, an assistant female coach in the NHL for the first time in the history, 100 plus years. And she was even caught on the camera doing kind of a write-up of a play during one of the intermissions and breaks. So, Evan, your thoughts on this historic moment and what this means for women in pro sports and in hockey, in the NHL specifically?
I go back to a few seasons ago. One of our first guests that came on for women was Leah Hextall. And she talked about getting into the play-by-play and how hard it was, and that, there always takes a trailblazer. It's interesting because she was not handed anything because she was a woman even, but good for her. Now, interesting enough, I reached out this morning to a contact in Coachella Valley who is a regular season ticket holder, and I asked, I saw she was constantly on the iPad. You could see her. And she was on that iPad. She was strategizing. And I was like, is she nervous? Is she just what's she doing like all the time? It seemed like she was consistently on it. And they said, no, she is a strategic chess thinker. So she constantly watches every play, goes back over. So they said, I don't know if she's going to be able to transition to a head coach one day because she's so strategic. She's going to have to learn how to put that thing aside and actually just focus in on the game and the movements and the lines. But she works with the team, but she is the brains behind the strategy, the analytics, all the things, who's winning the faceoffs, right, left side, what systems are they playing? And she constantly is checking because she zooms in and all the plays. So I thought that was an incredibly good thing that they did there. So, and by the way, that, even though that they lost, they came out strong. I thought the fans were pretty pumped for this game.
Yeah, they were excited. Seattle does love their hockey, and that market has to be very competitive given the fact that there could be an NBA team coming in the next 2 to 3 years there. So they got to compete with those dollars because otherwise people are going to want to go see a successful NBA team, and at that point you're losing fans, right? Not to say
Yeah.
you can't have
Yeah.
fans for both, but people will really select with their wallets. So you want to make your team competitive. They didn't win the first game. It's a long season. There's still a lot to happen. Now we're going to get into goalies a little bit later and by the numbers, but because we're on Seattle, I just wanted to get your thoughts on the contract that Ron Francis signed with Joey Daccord for 5 years at $5 million. We'll get into it a bit later. Oh,
Sorry, it was just breaking a bit your mic there. That's
I
okay.
apologize.
Yeah,
So
it's crazy with Mike's egg. Sometimes you just go 2 inches away and it takes off. Hey, Kyle, how you doing, man? And see that you're on there, Kyle. You might have not caught this earlier. We have 2 Bruins writers that are going to be starting up fairly soon, so keep an eye out for the articles. And I wanted to go in to actually talk about the Bruins. Is this an okay time?
Well, I wanted Joey Daccord thoughts, and then you jumped into Bruins. So let's just get your thoughts on Joey Daccord, and we'll get into the Bruins.
Well, the Joey Daccord stuff I had added into the by the number segment already.
And I said that. Okay.
So it's already in the by the numbers section. So unless you want to jump over there and move to your stuff there. I sent you the list, dude. I sent you the list.
Okay. And I just told you, I know we're getting to the by the numbers later, but I wanted your quick thoughts on the signing of Joey Daccord. That's all.
Yeah, I know, but then that takes away from our segment in by the numbers. So anyway, we will talk about Joey Daccord when we get into the numbers, and I'll give my better take. So, Kyle, I want to get your thoughts. Are you upset at Matthew Tkachuk last night? He's edging on Frederick. He's acting like, hey, do you want to fight? Do you want to go, big buddy? But he did not drop the gloves. And Frederick was so angry. Bruins fans are livid. In fact, I probably should have not lit the light a little bit. I put a little bit of fire on that out on X this morning. And I just said, hey, it's gamesmanship. He's psyching you guys out early. First game of the season, Matthew Tkachuk has got ready for the playoffs. He is getting the old rat in place. Now, do I agree? The code says you should fight if you ask to fight. Well, he's 20 pounds outweighed, 1 inch shorter. Should he fight? I think back to the Cassian days with the fight, and they called him Turtle, blah, blah, blah. You know what? He got the best of the Oilers in that with Cassian because he took Cassian off, and yes, he finally fought him, but it caused penalties. It went against Edmonton. They were frustrated. They were upset. You know what? That's just the way it goes, man. And so anyway, guys, I'd like to get your thoughts. I don't have a problem if he doesn't drop the gloves in a game that does not matter for him to try and rally his team. Okay, so what's Kyle saying?
If you want to egg someone on, then drop the gloves. Bruins like to fight. I mean, he asked Trent Frederick to fight according to Frederick. So that was the whole thing. And then he did it. Now, if for all of you that haven't seen or heard, the Amazon series is out and it has a few episodes with Matthew Tkachuk. And one of them is about the series last season between the Boston Bruins and Matthew Tkachuk, specifically Swayman. And it talked about how Matthew Tkachuk got under their skin and they hated it. And he would egg them on. He would go after Swayman, but Swayman would push back, and Pasta talked about it and Brad Marchand talked about it. And really, this is Tkachuk's game and he succeeds at it. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He knows how to get under people's skins. He knows how to push the right buttons. That's the game he plays. He's a power forward who's an agitator and can sometimes act a little reckless. And you love to see it. Every team in the NHL and every fan base in the NHL would love to have a Matthew Tkachuk on their team. Absolutely. And you know what? He does that best. He's dialed it down since his Calgary days, but he's still solid at it. And I think if he doesn't want to fight, he's not going to fight. Plus, there's some big fighters on Florida. So I'm not worried that Matthew Tkachuk can't be protected. That being said, Bruins, it's the kettle calling the pot black because you have Brad Marchand who does a similar game style. And so to me, it's no right.
So this is my argument I had on Twitter. Yeah, he does it too. He gets under the only difference, and this is what I had. The one guy says, well, if he says, come on, want to fight? And you should go with the code of fighting. But Marchand will slash you when the ref isn't looking, hurt your hands, actually assure you. And he doesn't have to fight. I think code is code. But the truth is there is no code. Since Bettman came in, the code has slowly been removed. And it's really free for all now.
Well, no, I would disagree. There is a bit of a code. It's just amongst the players that usually there is a bit of a value you have to answer. It doesn't always happen, but I think it depends on team dynamics and what the team says, right?
So do you remember last year the slap shot into the net? Right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Well, and they said, well, it's code. You don't do that. Well, guess what? The old guys don't care. The new guys care. I feel like they're a bunch of little sissies that they can't put up.
Morgan Riley is an older guy, and he cared. He's the one that got into it and got suspended.
No. That's not. That's when I say old guys. You're obviously very young because you think Riley is old. I'm talking about players like going back to Chris Christopoulos, some of our former guests, Carcillo and Shrimpy days and all that kind of stuff, right around it. So what's Grant say? Tough to admit, but the Panthers are living rent free in the minds of the Bruins and their fans. Up to Boston to figure it out. Destined to meet in the playoffs again. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Why don't we, because we're on the Bruins, why don't we leave some of the rest of our NHL news and we'll come back to it. And I'll go ahead and I'll run our segment for By the Numbers so we can get into some stuff.
And before you do that, Grant, let us know what team you support, if there's a team that you're a fan of or not. Cheers.
Absolutely. Puckpedia, the ultimate source for your NHL salary cap information, player contracts, team cap hits, transaction news, and injury news.
By the numbers.
Okay, let's go for it, man. You and I had a big argument at the end about Swayman and numbers and stuff, just because we had different opinions and stuff. And long and behold, one day later, it happens again. They sign after we talk about it.
8.25 for 8 years, which is pretty good for Mr. Swayman.
Okay, so
he got what he wanted. So he has 66 million reasons to stick around.
Well, it sounded like he wanted a lot more even than that when he started on his numbers. But so is this, I don't know, this is just me. So this is my understanding from the people I've talked to, okay? So what'd you say? I actually don't have an issue with it. I just like seeing the gloves drop, but I don't hate Kachuk. Yeah, right on, Kyle. Yeah, I agree, man. Okay, so this is a thought. The team had offered, okay, he said it was like 7.75. is what he was saying. They did not offer the 64. It was like 7.5 or 7.75 mil. He was asking for like 8.5 or 8.75. So
he was asking for 10, up to 10.
Yeah, originally. But we're talking in the latest round of negotiations since end of August here, in September. So interesting enough, I feel like they had this separation. They had all this mental anguish against each other that was put out in the public, and they both went public different ways, and everyone has their own opinions, like you and I even. But literally, we're talking. What's that?
Swayman never went public.
Oh, dude, you need to go back to last week's episode and listen to what I said. Do you want me to go back and say how he went public?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
So he went public because he came out and he said, I've done my research. I've gone in. I know how much goalies get. I now know that this is a business after I went to arbitration. He chose to go to arbitration. Arbitration tears your game down. Every agent knows that. Every player knows that. We can talk with players if you want to get. We'll talk even with agents if you want to. In fact, Daryl Wolski, agent, hockey agency 2112 will be on next week. Let's have this discussion. So he started going public and saying that. So he already came out and said, oh, I have to do a thing for all the other goalies and get the fair wage. And I know now it's a business. And they said stuff that ripped me out. And I wrote it down. That's going public, dude.
That was in the Amazon series.
No, that was before the series. It was already public before the series ever came out.
Okay.
It was already mentioned.
I am wrong.
Because before the series had happened. And so he started by going to arbitration, called it. Then he decided to make these quotes and gave it to interviews. And then, of course, he stays away from the team, hurts the team. They were only apparently about $500,000 apart per year. Like that's like a half of like basically a 13th forward or a seventh D man wage. So anyway, they both went public.
Would you like me to rebuttal or what's happening here?
Yeah,
because
it's okay. No,
I honestly think you say what you want, but I always find it funny how people complain about the millionaires who are combating the billionaires and the owners about a few extra dollars, because talk to your boss about taking your job for a lesser wage right now and see. You're going to want to get as much as you believe you're worth, regardless of the other guy. And if you believe that you can do it, and you are now, as players are getting paid for what they're going to do, not what they have done. You know, you look at Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves, you're looking at players like a Dylan Gunther, like a Jeremy Swayman, you know, and what they are going to do, that's what they want to get paid for. They don't want to take a discount. Why?
I wish I could get paid for what I'm going to do, what my potential is. I wish someone would pay me that way. But that's their business, and that's new in their business because they never got paid that way. But of course, I mean, let's go to the other end. Players didn't get paid their fair worth, did really well, won his cup or took them to the finals, and then became a star for the team, and then they got paid. But now they're not as good, right? They can't carry the team. So they got paid later. But at least the team owed them the money. Right now, there are so many contracts coming out. Let's go to some, actually. We can talk about it right now.
But what if you're a player and you succeed with the team, and then the team cuts you? Like, no, we don't want you anymore. You look at Vegas, Jonathan Marchessault. You look at what he wanted. And
at the end of your contract. You say at the end of the contract, though, right?
Yeah.
But at the end of the contract. You have 4 years. Your 4 years are done. Now you're a free agent. Go do what you want.
Right, but he wanted to stay in Vegas, and he helped them win a cup, and he was the Conn Smythe winner.
Yeah,
and they got loose. So
but
again, players want that security.
Yeah.
They want that security.
They offered him only $250,000 less per year, and they did come up to the full 4 years for him. And he ended up leaving just around that time because he had hurt feelings, Jonathan Marchessault. They're getting all these hurt feelings, all these young guys. Sorry, but it's a business, and you need to keep your feelings out of this as a player.
Why is it that we're not complaining about the billionaires making more money, but the millionaire hockey players, huh? It's because of the cap salary.
Risk. No,
dude. Cap salary. That's it.
The NHL players, there is
no.
So you're
because the cap salary means that someone, if you're taking more from that piece of pie,
so
someone else is getting less.
Okay, so your stadium is half full, okay? You're not attracting anybody. Let's just go to Arizona. You're losing money. Now, the NHL has a system to help bail them out to break even, basically, okay?
Well, then you shouldn't be in business.
Well, I agree. But then some of these players play so bad, but yet they still get their money regardless. But an owner, if he messes up, if he doesn't do proper revenue, he could potentially not make the money. He puts the risk down, not them. A player gets paid regardless. They have insurance. All these big owners, they don't have insurance against all that stuff. If they sign players to massive millions of dollars, that's on them. But the player, it's not on them. They get to finish off the rest of their contract or get bought out. You got who? Ryan Suter right now, man. He's being paid 3 salaries right now while he's playing this year. Like, that guy has made a living by oversigning 2 contracts, and they're paying him out.
Well, no, that's on the GM for signing that contract. When you're a GM getting out that contract,
that's the owner now. The owner hires these guys that are not good.
Then why are we complaining about Jeremy Swayman getting that extra $250? That's what I'm saying. Why are we complaining about them?
No, I wasn't complaining about him getting the 8.25. I said 8 should be it, but you know what? I'm fine with it because I
still think players should get what they believe they are worth. Rightfully or wrongfully, what they are getting paid for what they're going to potentially do, because that's the market.
Did I hear you right? Did you say what they believe they're worth? A lot of players. Okay, so Broberg.
I'm not saying that's what you should. I'm not saying that's what you should get. I'm saying you have to go. You stand for what you believe you are worth, and go get that. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Are you going to get it? That depends on the GM of the team,
and that's the discrepancy, because you said they should go get what they're worth. I believe they should get what they're worth. They should. So what you were saying is they shouldn't actually get it, but they should pursue to get what they believe. Negotiations. Here's the problem. I think negotiations need to come out of the public. The negotiations should be handled. There should be a silent cone that's put around negotiations, because us as fans, it really doesn't affect us at all. Salary cap is salary cap. What we should be mad
It does
at.
affect us because we looked at, not directly, but we look at our team and we say, how do we build a contender when X amount of dollars is going, like a Toronto, to 4 or 5 players? 50% of the salary is going to those players. How then do you surround that team, those 5 guys, with another, 10 to 15 dudes that you can cover and still adequately provide a good product on the ice? That is the challenge. The cap salary is the problem. And when you take more from the cap, someone else is getting less.
I think that this is a shared thing, though, in the NHL. Owners have to share the money with these players. They get, like NFL, they get big money, but the thing is, it's not guaranteed contracts. They could be
but there's fewer games and there's other things going on.
Well, and they get a lot more money for less games. Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
They get paid. But with the players in the NHLPA, the players have it pretty good in a league that does not make the same money off revenue from media, right? So you're not getting the big cable. Yeah. You're not getting NBC. You're not getting all those groups that are paying. It's starting to increase, but they're always allowed on that salary cap based around, including more teams is more money for more players, right? With it. I mean, it's increasing. I think they're doing a good job, but hence, let's go on. We have a couple other guys we want to get into. So and by the way, this is the interesting thing. The reason I struggled on that contract, but I also struggle on this next contract with Linus Ullmark, and that is neither one of these guys have ever played a full season. Linus Ullmark has not played more than 40 plus games in any season because he's been splitting for many years. I was just in there looking. He might have had a 50-game season somewhere along the line. Interesting enough, now their save percentages are good. So that's one thing that what I'm recognizing is people are getting paid according to save percentage more than absolutely anything, which is tough if you're playing for a team that has a bad, porous defense and has a lot of holes and gives up high-quality chances. So if you didn't hear, everyone, Linus Ullmark signed for 4 years. Now he's, I believe, 2 years older, 2 or 3 years older than Swayman for the exact same figure. Pavel, this makes me think that they were just sitting and waiting, and there was an agreement already between the Sens and between Ullmark's agent that whatever Swayman settled was going to be identical. This came out way too fast after Swayman's announcement.
100%, but there's less risk in this one, as you call it, because it's only 4 years. So it's not as chaotic. And Linus Ullmark is a good goaltender. You're right. Yeah. He's played no more than 49 games in the last season, and that was the last time he was in Boston. So his workload is less. But as you know, in the NHL now, you don't want a goalie playing more than 50 to 55 games in a season, unlike Alexander Georgiev in Colorado. And you could tell because he was overworked in the playoffs last year. So I think this is a good deal for Linus Ullmark. I agree this is risky for Ottawa after what they did with Korpisalo, but they were able to trade him away. And
actually, I was going to say, I just was thinking about this. Really, if you think they got rid of Korpisalo and brought in Ullmark, they didn't really increase their salary too much, and they do have them for another year at 5, right? I think it's 5 or 5 something.
Yeah, one more.
So they didn't have to pay a lot extra because they unloaded a contract they had just signed. So that's where this was a sneaky good move.
Oh, I agree. I don't know why people think that Korpisalo, that was a good trade. I think that was a good trade for Ottawa. I don't know what Boston was doing there. And again, they kind of tied their own hands by trading away Ullmark until of waiting to figure out, because maybe you could have got Swayman under a little bit less. Who knows? Maybe you would have gotten, as you said, Evan, at that 7.8 or 8 million, right? But again, this is Boston's number. They decided that this is best. Good for what's it called? Good for Ottawa, because you want to be competitive, and that market is hungry for a playoff, and you need something. And when you solidify that back end, you're going to be goal. And Lost Trucker says goalies should play at least 60 if you're number one. I think gone are the days of them playing 60. I think it's workload management, especially back-to-back games in an 82-game season with now potentially an 84 in the future. you want a goalie to play 50 no more to be rested for a long playoff 16 game run, if not more, because you can't win 16 straight, right? So you're going to play at least 19 to 22 extra games on top of your regular season. So now you're getting into the 80s of games that in total, if you add 60, right?
You go that far. So here's a question for you. Why? I've heard my own whys, and you're going by what you're hearing, obviously, about the workload, right? Years ago, Martin Brodeurs, and there was days that these guys played, and they still played 82 games in a season. Why, you crazy pals? All right, pause. But why do you think? Okay, why do you think workload is harder now than it was 20 years ago? Say,
for goalies.
Yeah, why is it harder for a goalie in today's NHL than it was, say, 20 years ago? What's your take on that?
The talent of the NHL and the forwards and defense and the plays. There's so much more talent up front. There's so many more high scoring games. I mean, it's a several-fold answer, but the talent, when you look at players right now in the NHL, they can score. You have a lot of guys who can score 80, 90, 100 points in the season, and you see it more often, whereas back in the day, you have one or two players that could get that high in numbers. The other thing is that you have refereeing, which, albeit, controversial, it has improved the game in terms of how many people you can hack, slash, so there's more movement on the ice. Essentially, there's a big schedule. You're going around. There's high stakes and value in all of these games. These franchises are there to make money, so you got to compete. And I think the workload is just so much more because you're training 24/7. There's no more quote unquote off season beyond maybe like a month or here, but players are still training and conditioning nonstop, even throughout the summer. They are getting ready. They are playing at every level. They are trying to stay competitive. And so in my mind, those are the things that make the biggest impact in terms of the high volume work.
So I just put up. Oh, you switched it over on me.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I just put up. I like the 52, 55 game schedule. I threw that up there for you guys to comment on.
What am I not learning in the NHL, Miss Lost Trucker?
She's lost right now. Okay, so why don't we move over to Seattle, who you wanted to talk about earlier here?
You're rabbiting to what others want to hear you say. I guess I'm a sheep tonight, thinking of my own stuff. Okay.
You sheeple. Okay, so
I didn't realize disagreeing with Evan is sheeple.
Okay, let's go into Joey Daccord.
All right. Your thoughts on the contract that he signed, the 5 years, $5 million.
5 years, $5 million. So I first thing I thought is he had a good season last year. It was the first time he had a .915 save percentage. And this is where I started figuring out today what I'm noticing with the contracts that are higher paid, even going back to Vasilevsky, is the save percentage. And if people are not aware, last season, the save percentage average in the NHL was a .898. It's the lowest it's been in a long time. The scoring was extremely high. It took a lot of goalies lower. Normally, a 905 is not good, but it was a decent last year. Normally, you want to be over a 910 minimum. 915 talks about excellent goalies. So he did a 50-game season for the first time, okay? Now, watch this, though. 6 years. Last 6 years, he's played 26 games average if you break out all of his total games over the last 6 years. And he is a sub-900 goalie in every season except this last year. There was one, he was a 9 or a 902 with it. I'm a little shocked that he's getting paid off of a 1-year stand, that they took a chance on a 5-year contract, because this team's building in right now some good pieces. And I am worried with Grubauer and him that because they both can be a little streaky. And so my concern is, can Daccord pick up where he left off last year? And maybe they're judging this on both playing around 40 plus games, or 38, and one gets high 40s.
I guess
so. Go ahead. Yeah. No, I'm a little concerned about the price. If it was a 3-year, I think I would have felt more comfortable. But
I guess the question that people have to ask, and Evan, you can maybe allude to this and comment, how much do you want to spend on your goalie tandem? Do you want to have something like Edmonton, which is super cheap with Calvin Pickard and Stuart Skinner? or something like Toronto has, where you have a bunch of guys that are, I don't want to say fringe, but not unproven, similar to Seattle. A little bit, unexperienced, given that it's Stolarz playing as a backup, finally as a, 1B, 1A tandem with Wool, who's now injured, and that's a whole other thing. And, you still have Matt Murray. Or do you want someone big like a Connor Hellebuck who's doing the workload, or a UC Saros, and, last year was Lincoln and coming in, or a Thatcher Dem going out, or to Selov, and you're paying these guys, or like a Sergei Bobrovsky and you're paying 10 plus million, and then you have a Spencer Knight coming in. And of course, Stolarz was there previously, but you have a younger guy coming in. What is your cap reasonable out of an 85 million?
I think we talked about this, you and I, last season, and I generally say that within a cap system, this will be interesting. So guys, next month, in about 4 or 5 weeks, we have right from one of our partners that we're partnering with and advertising for them this year, for Puckpedia, your new source for getting all your cap friendly stuff you used to get. It's got some great GM chair stuff. So Hart Levine from Puckpedia will be with us. I'd like to ask him if there's generally if there's an idea what you see in those pockets, because you and I talked last year. I believe last year and this year's fairly the same. Right now, that pocket of goalie money is what I would put aside, defense money, forward money, and I would say 10 million. So if you can work within a 10 million, anything less, you better get ready, because you're cheating something to save on your goalie. So let's just say Edmonton, they're good this year and next year. But if they win the cup, or even if they get to another Stanley Cup final or a Final Four 2 more times and never win a cup, that's still good goaltending to get you there. And if he can get into the 910, 915 save percentage, I can't see that guy getting less, because it's in 2 years when the cap's up, less than the 8 million. Now, can the Oilers handle it? Yeah, long as you have other contracts coming off up front.
And there are always trades to be made that can happen. You look at someone like, nobody thought Askarov would be traded until he made us think about it. It's interesting to see that he was dropped down by San Jose, but, he went over there because he wanted to play. And, even though Brian Trotz was very reluctant about the trade, it does happen. Goalies get chances all over the time. It sounds like James Reimer was just picked off of waivers the last few days to Anaheim, given that Gibson's injury. So things could change at a moment's glance.
I do want to mention, I just got some information from someone I'm trying to bring on from the San Jose Sharks. So sounds like he was injury ridden during training camp and the preseason. He was dealing with stuff. So they So I'm being told not to read too much into it, but they told him they want to make sure he's 100% healthy before they start riding, is what they're telling us. Some of the writers and media are coming out.
Especially with that defense there, you're going to face a lot of volume of shots. Yeah. You want to make sure that you're prepared. Go ahead.
I know we have some more stuff around the numbers. Let's come back next week later, because I'm looking at our time. We got about 15. Got around the rink we want to do, and we want to do some predictions. So I was thinking, let's run to those predictions right now. But before we do, I just want to throw this out there. Talk about how much money someone makes. The Tampa Bay, we didn't get a chance to really take a moment about it because it was really quick last week. The sale price, $1.8 billion for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So
I wrote about it in my article. Weekly,
but I want people to think about this. If they're worth $1.8 billion, and a team like Arizona got bought for $1.2 billion, that was not even with arena, with nothing, and not even the name, nothing came over. You just spent now, they're talking could be like $2 billion to come in on a new franchise, might be a $1.5 billion on a new franchise. How much is your team worth that you like with an arena or without? And remember, if you have an arena deal that's set up in a good arena, your team's worth that much more. So that's some interesting stuff that we have to look at. So, all right. So why don't we jump over and we'll go to over around the rink. If you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the rink
is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes. Hey, bud. So around the rink, there's just two things that we talked about that maybe we'll discuss. I want to talk about Flow Hockey, who does advertising, and then the London Knights. this year. And I know I sent you some stuff that I found very interesting about Dale Hunter coaching in London. He started this season with 951 games. He's close to becoming the second coach in NHL history to be able to being 1,000 games. And like, think of that. That's over 22 years this guy has coached. And then the other question was just kind of around now, hang on. Yeah, and Mark Hunter's the GM, right? I'm just trying to get the names right. I wrote it wrong in my notes. Yeah, and then my thought around that, I just want to bring you guys thought around the London Knights and how historic that franchise is. But they've done a lot good, and a part of that is Dale's brother, Mark, who runs the franchise. He's been involved. We've talked about this several times. Pavel's brought him up. Mark Hunter, when is this guy going to get his shot, Pavel? Because when do you think?
When he wants it. I think he's been offered. I think he's been approached. I think he's waiting for the right opportunity.
He has applied and not got in. So the last two times he has been in on the Oilers. So both the Holland and the Bowman, he was in the running and he was interviewed with that job. But do you think he's just being specific to the type and culture of a team?
I think so. I think he wants somewhere very specific. And I think who wouldn't want to be close to home, aka Toronto, the Maple Leafs, right? And how often some of their stars go over. I mean, when you think about the London Knights, there's a lot of players that play on those teams that go on to have successful NHL careers. They're a very coveted organization. I think certainly there could be something in terms of his technique, but I think given the power he has and control of the London Knights, I think he's looking for something similar in terms of that. If not GM, potentially president of hockey operations is what I think he could be looking at, which is why I think there hasn't been anything that has been offered yet. So,
well, and I wonder because he's a free-flying, high-scoring offensive machine, his club, and always has been. They're never known as a defensive juggernaut. So it makes me really think, is he looking for a team? And that's why he was interested in the Oilers position, because they've always been known for, other than the years they had no money, they were more gritty. Otherwise, so they'll either be grit or they'll be skill. But you got to wonder, because Kelly McCrimmon looked good. You got to think. I think Mark Hunter is deserving of that spot sooner than later. So, all right. Hey, so big news, and I didn't get to share this last week. For some of you, now we will put this up on our Facebook page. By the way, make sure, guys, that you go and check out over on our social media. So you go to our social media and you will see on our Facebook page, we constantly put up information around all types of hockey. And so that's going to be across leagues and stuff. So one of those is with Flow Hockey. Now, Flow Sports, they do not just hockey, they do football and basketball. They televise. So if you're in Canada or say in the US and you want to watch some Canadian junior hockey, Flow Sports will have it for you. You want to watch ECHL? Flow Sports has it. You want to watch AHL? They just signed a deal. They will have it for you. And just a couple weeks ago, they finalized the deal to watch the Swedish Hockey League, Sweden's Hockey League, the SHL. And last week, the first game got started with Frölunda taking on Modo. Guys, I looked at the pricing. So the pricing is a little more expensive if you go monthly. It's going to be, and we're not advertising for them. I'm just telling you, if you want to follow hockey. So some of you guys asked, well, how do you get to follow so much when you're over in the western part of Canada? Well, I get to see stuff live in Western Canada the odd time when Pavel or I go away. But a lot of times it's having to do visual and watching through things like Flow Sports and other networks, and also connecting with many different people in our network. That's how we get a lot of our information. So, but I encourage you, if you're really into looking at, I believe they have the North American Hockey League, and they do have the USHL in the States as well, guys. So give them a check. Flow Sports, Flow Hockey. If you buy the full package, it's like $20 a month if you buy for the year. And you get like thousands upon thousands of games around it. So. Wow. All right. Okay, that's it for Around the Hockey. Why don't we I'll go ahead and we'll wrap up this segment, and let's go in and talk about our predictions for
Sure.
the
If
NHL.
you're a fan of hard-hitting, exciting hockey, catch the Kalkaska Battlers.
Around the rink.
Is brought to you by the Kalkaska Battlers. Let them be your local hockey heroes.
All right,
Oh.
let's get into predictions in the East. There's a lot going on. Where do you want to start? Do you want to get in the Atlantic or the Metro?
Well, why don't we go into? I'm just trying to. Let's go into the Metro. You go ahead and start us off.
All right, so I know the season has begun. Points are being earned,
Well,
but
I think we're okay with only a couple games. No team has played more than 2 going into tonight.
thank you for letting me finish. You're just jumping in and stealing my thunder. I appreciate it. The Thunder, it's Tampa Bay, and that's in the Atlantic, but let's focus on the Metro. So
Okay, that's good.
my prediction for the season this year in the Metro is the Rangers winning in first, Carolina Hurricanes in second, the Devils in third, the Islanders in fourth, your wonderful Pittsburgh Penguins in fifth, missing the playoffs, Philadelphia Flyers in sixth, as much of a fan I am.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'm sorry, Jamie Baskow. In seventh, Columbus Blue Jackets, and in eighth, the Washington Capitals. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So let me ask you a few questions around some of your selections. So, guys, what we're doing for the Eastern Conference tonight, next week we'll do the Western. And so each one of us are taking a division, throwing our stuff out there, and then we're asking questions back and forth. Feel
Okay.
free to throw something up there in the comments or disagree or take, but explain yourself if you want something different. So I want Pavel to explain how he has the Washington Capitals dropping, looking like they're going to be a top 4 draft pick.
Well, they're slow. Ovi's 1 year more older, and the goal there is just to get him that goal scoring record complete. I don't like Dubois. He struggles everywhere he's gone. He's not going to be the center you need. It's tough. I do like their back end a little bit and their goaltending, but where's the scoring come from? Now you have Backstrom and Oshie out for the rest of the season. Those are big veteran losses. You got John Carlson, who's 1 year older. You got Tom Wilson, who's 1 year older, and although he's a battler and physically a menacing presence, where's the scoring coming from, Evan? That's the issue with the Washington Capitals. They're going to have a hard time scoring, and their primary scorer is Alexander Ovechkin trying to beat that record. I'm sorry. I think they have a few youth, but they really need to improve. And I think all the other teams have youth infused on that are ahead of them, including Philly and Columbus, and they're hungry for making an impact. And Washington just doesn't have that. And I'm sorry, Washington fans, but I can't see you competing that way, especially since last season you had a minus 37 and still made the playoffs, which was surprising with Charles Lindgren in place. That's what I see it as. Just down the middle, you're not as strong as I expect you to be. Dylan Strome is your number 1 center, or between Pierre-Luc Dubois and him, 1A, 1B. I don't know. I struggle.
Okay, yeah, no, I get it. I'm looking at the forwards right now as we're talking. I'm just thinking who has scoring ability, right? We obviously know guys like
Tom Milano, really?
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. You got Strome, Ovechkin, of course. Connor McMichael is getting better, but he's still not one of those guys you can rely on. Mazepan is still settling in. He's never really.
He's never played there. So does he fit into that system?
Yeah, and Dubois, you PLD, are you going to get maybe a 50, 60 point at best season? You got John Carlson and Chickerman on the back end for some games. Yeah, I'm with you, man. I haven't taken the time to walk that through. That's a good point. Now, I've heard a lot of pundits are looking at a drop in Carolina, but you're actually giving them second overall in their division. And there's people actually talking about Jersey taking right there neck and neck with the Rangers. So maybe tell us where are you coming to on the Hurricanes?
So with the Hurricanes, you look at Rob Brind'Amour and what he gets out of that team. He is gonna get every inch, like John Tortorella, out of that team. He's gonna make them work for and battle for every goal. You sign Seth Jarvis to a longer-term contract. He's going to be an impactful top 6 guy. You still have Sebastian Aho, who I think is a superstar in this league, and he doesn't get enough credit. You do lose Timu Teravainen to Chicago. I agree that that's going to be a big loss. And you did lose Brett Pesce, but you still have one of the best defensive defensemen in the league, and that's Jacob Slavin. And the guy barely takes penalties, and yet he is so smart with the puck and knows how to defend so well. Goaltending is a little bit questionable with Kochetkov. Of course, Ranta has retired. I think Anderson's there for one more year. So
and the question is, will Anderson have a good season, right? Without injury.
I think he can. It's what he does in the playoffs and postseason.
And Burns.
Is what's impactful. But I think Carolina, they're not going to go down without a fight. And Eric Tulsky, who took over there from Don Waddell, I think he's going to do something to impact that line. I know they lost Max Pacioretty, but he's going to be a fringe top 9 guy in the bottom of Toronto. Oh, I've lost Evan. Evan has left the building. And so that's how I kind of see the Carolina Hurricanes. But you guys can let me know if I'm wrong about the Carolina Hurricanes. You're back. Was it that appalling what I was saying? As
no.
For the Devils, I like the Devils, and I think they'll be competitive. And I'm sure if Ray was on or listening, he would definitely agree. The problem is, and again, I like their defensive core. I like what they brought in. I like their goaltending. After last year, they struggled. It's the health of their team, Evan, because they look fast. Yeah. And it's a matter of if they can stay healthy and if they can get Timo Meier going. If you can get Timo Meier to live up to that contract, about 70 to 80 points, you are going to be doing well. Hey, Grant, thank you. Appreciate it. But yeah, okay. Would you have anyone anywhere else differently before we go over to the Atlantic?
Yeah, no, I do see the Flyers. I think I would switch I'd pull the Islanders down. I'd move Penguins to 6. I'll put the Islanders to 5, and I would put the Flyers at 4. I think this will be the year of the young boys making it work in Philly. I am pumped, and maybe I'm buying too much into the Mishkov hype here. The Maffa, Mitchie, as we're going to start calling him for Mishkov over there. But yeah, no, I think overall it was just that Capitals one people might have a question around.
I want to say I think Columbus is going to rally around, and they could be even a little bit higher for Johnny. And I think they're going to be competitive enough to make an impact there. So
that's
don't
fair.
Discount the Columbus Blue Jackets. My question with the Blue Jackets is just goaltending again. And can Merzlikins get back up to what he was? But go ahead.
Okay. Well, why don't we, as long as I think I set this up right, I was doing this really quick when we came in. So this is how I lined up the Atlantic guys for you this year for regular season. Again, we're not covering playoffs and all that. Going into it's pretty tough to do at the beginning of the year. Maybe in 3 weeks we'll get a feel of the first couple weeks, and then Pavel and I will tell you who we see as our final 4. So the Atlantic, I know Florida lost a lot on the back end. Now Ekman Larson, you could say, well, he's not that great, but he's solid. That's the thing back there, right? He's a solid guy. And losing Montour to Seattle, that was huge. So those 2 guys, I think, are going to set them back a bit. But I think Boston is going to take a bit of a step back and not be able to push as much this year. That's just strictly just from looking. Like right now, there's talk that Zadarov might be moving some of the guys around, and Zadarov might get some chances to play that first line D. Well, Zadarov is not a first line D, and so I don't know. They're going to play around, but I see Florida. They play a tough game. I think they're going to be more exhausted. We'll talk about playoffs in a few weeks about what their chances are, but I do see them being the best down here. Boston, they're always there. I put them too low too many other years, so that's why I got to get them. And they re-signed Swayman, so right there tells me where we're at. Now Toronto, I debated about moving them up. I am worried that pressure internally is going to even increase this year on those guys. And people say, well, they're professionals. That doesn't matter. They're still humans, and they still have to deal with the psychological part of the game. So I could see them saying, you know what, we're in the playoffs. Let's not worry where we are. Let's not exhaust ourselves out in the regular season, and focus more on just playing a solid game and work on the structure. So that's why I dropped them back a few spots. I think it's going to be 6 to 8 points difference between 1 and 3 this year. Okay. And then Detroit, I do think are ready to make that move. They got some good key pieces. I'm a little worried about their defense, but I think that they can outscore some. and I'm happy with their goaltending. Tampa will take the drop back this year. As much as this is hard for me, I'm the one that called them out for those three. I said they'd do a three-peat, which they didn't quite do. I love Tampa. I've been supportive. They got the goalie down the middle. They got your top guy in Point and Kucherov, and they got Victor Hedman. But I feel their depth is starting to hurt, and it's starting to show, and the cap has caught up to them. So that's why I moved them. Buffalo.
Yeah,
great. Okay, I'll be quick on this now because I know, guys, we've hit overtime. Buffalo, I'm just worried that they just can't put it together. I'm always worried about the way they run the team and how they coach the team. That's more my issue that I'm having. And then just around the Senators and Montreal. Montreal, they just have so many injuries that keep hitting them over and over. And then we're dealing with the Senators, who I just think that, again, I'm worried about how it's run, how it's coached. So I think that you're going to find Montreal and Senators are not going to be as poor teams this year. They'll be much better. So Buffalo, Montreal, and Senators, I have with only 10 points separated with all of them.
Do you believe then that there is going to be a 4-4 split for the playoffs, or will there be more from the Atlantic or the Metro in the postseason?
I actually think it'll be a 4-4. I think that they'll still have the 4 split.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I actually see Detroit as that 8, and chances are they're going to take on the Rangers, and they'll be gone in the first round.
Wow. Well, there you guys have it. You guys can let us know if we're wrong or if Evan is completely out of his rocker for the prediction. I would say that I don't discount Tampa. You can't. They replaced Stamkos with Jake Gensel, who I think is going to bring it. And they got under that Tanner Jeannot contract, so that's the one that's interesting. They can still be 5th place, but my big question is, how do the Senators gel under Travis Green, and can they be a little bit more competitive? I, however, do not trust Buffalo at all to make the playoffs. I'm sorry, Buffalo fans, only because of your goaltending tandem. It's not strong enough and proven enough. I love Devin Levi. I liked him in the World Juniors. But Ukko, even with Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen over the weekend, you wanted a split there. I mean, you wanted to win both. You wanted a split, and Devin Levi played unreal, and your defense just dried up. And I wonder, beyond Tage Thompson and Dylan Cousins, where is that depth scoring coming from? You brought in Ryan McLeod for speed. You need something there. You brought in Jason Zucker for a 1-year contract. Where is that going to bring? Is he going to move the needle? Unfortunately, Buffalo, I don't see making the playoffs. Montreal's in a rebuild, so I think they'll be competitive and playing meaningful games till January. But I really think that Detroit, as much as they've tried, they had a bad slide last year, and I don't think they make the playoffs this year. And I think the Senators would replace them in that spot.
Wow, man. It's going to be an exciting, as you mentioned to start us off, it's going to be an exciting year. Why don't I finish with our hockey history, and then we'll say our goodbyes.
The Kalkaska Battlers presents
Hockey history.
Catch the Kalkaska Battlers as they compete in the APHL. Check the skills, speed, heart. Make sure you catch a game and experience the thrill of live hockey. Go Battlers!
So, guys, just a really quick story that I found so interesting that was a story that was told by Brendan Shanahan when he played with the Detroit Red Wings, just to show the respect the Colorado Avalanche's Joe Sakic being very much an icon in the NHL. So there was a day, now, if you followed back in the day, Sean Avery, very mouthy, trash talked all the time, had some definitely, he was one of those guys that irritate you. He's the guy that say, hey, let's get in a fight, and then he'd pull away.
He was the original Matthew Tkachuk.
Yeah, well, actually, I believe he did that with a couple Oilers back in the day. I forget who it was, but that they said, let's go, and then he pulled back away, right? He's like, no, I'm not doing this. Anyway, so I guess one day what happened is as Joe Sakic was going by, he says, hey, Sakic! And just as he yelled out, hey, Sakic, Shanahan says, Brett Hall grabs him by the arm, rips him down to his seat, and he says, He looked down the bench, and all the other players are nodding their heads saying, no, you don't diss Mr. Joe Sakic. That's what he was known as Mr. Sakic to the world. So if you want to know how appreciated Joe Sakic is and how underappreciated some fans think, all you have to look is the respect around the league and not many superstar players can go into a GM president status. Like Mario Lemieux did a great job, but he owned a team. He didn't have to run the team the same way. So there's very few players that can actually translate that. So I found that a fabulous and incredible story, man.
Can I just say that rivalry that Colorado had with Detroit in the 90s?
Oh,
and
man.
The wildest things. There's a documentary out you guys should check out about it. But it was incredible. And I got to be honest, as much as I enjoyed Oilers back in the 90s, I found that team with Joe Sakic, Patrick Waugh, Peter Forsberg, who was just like an unreal threat on the ice. Like the man could skate. He was so sleek on the ice. I love that team. I thought that was good. Adam Oates on there on the back end, being as tough as he was, one tough customer. Great. Great.
Do you know? I was just thinking about that team that played when they had Forsberg and they even brought Ray Bourque at the end, and they had like tons of players. I was going to say that I would classify some of the greatest teams of all time. Of course, one of those mid '80s Oilers teams, one of the 2 years. I would put the Montreal Canadiens back in the day with Lafleur and the Rocky Richard and all them. And then I would put the New York Islanders with their 4 straight Stanley Cups, and I would put the Colorado Avalanche during those 2-3 years when they had Forsberg, Sakic, and the gang right into that. It was iconic, man. Team. Hey, quick mention to everyone before we go off the air. I just got notice today. We're working on details. There's been a segment I've been waiting to hold on to. They have got back to me finally, so we will have a new segment called Netminder Nation, and it's going to be hosted by a former guest, Jadlyn Spooner, who is a former goaltender and played college hockey for women. She is going to be giving us a breakdown. So every once in a while, when we want to talk about the way a goalie plays, we want to talk about goaltending coach, we're going to consult. She's going to come on for a 5-10 minute segment and be able to catch us all up on the dynamics and the analytics of goaltending, so that you're not just listening to moi and tuning me out like Pavel does every time I talk about it. And again, writers, we got some more writers. So you Penguins fans, you Bruins fans, if you want to do some betting on hockey, well, we're going to have some guys on odds makers being able to come on, as well as around Calgary and Vancouver. If you do want to write, we will allow up to 2 people per team. If there's a team you want to write for, anywhere, any league, if it's NHL, let us know, send us a note, and we'll get you hooked up, guys. We'd love to be able to get you guys all connected as we build our hockey blogging articles for you guys. And make sure that you guys go on, check us out every Wednesday, 7 p.m. right here. We usually run an hour and 5, an hour and 10. It's 65.
Special.
Yeah, well, and we didn't even have Michael Devellano on tonight, head U.S. scout for the Everett Silvertips. Imagine if we had that, we'd be another 20 minutes. So, But
guys, it's been a ring-a-ding dandy again. We appreciate you tuning in. We've had a good turnout. We appreciate all the comments, feedback, thoughts. Remember to give us a like, a follow on YouTube and on Facebook. We appreciate it. We are almost at that 1,000 fan follower mark. We are looking forward to having you guys join us and get updated on all things hockey throughout the season and into the summer. We appreciate it. We will be back here again next Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time to talk more things hockey, NHL, AHL, KHL, and everything you can ever think about with hockey. So long as it's got a stick and a puck, we're ready to go, even a ball.
Well, and Darryl Wolski, Hockey Agency 2112. He's a hockey agent. He has his own company. He'll be in with Scott Glennie, if he played for the Brandon Wheat Kings previously and played some AHL guys. So we'll have a chance to kind of learn more what's going on. So we will get to talk about some other leagues and what's happening, and also some of the stuff of what it's like in recruiting and stuff in hockey, as well as get his excitement around the hockey. He's always a fun listen, and he's pretty honest in his opinions. So, all right, man. Hey, it's been a beauty. I'd like to say hi to all our new fans in Minnesota and Michigan that have been coming out, and Nevada. You still top the charts. You and New York, always topping the charts in the U.S. And thanks to Alberta and, wow, I'm going to say it for the first time, Ontario. You've been stepping it up. Thanks, guys. And big thank you over to Czechia. You guys have been coming on a lot more. Very appreciated. And then always love you guys over in Bangladesh and Australia, which you shocked me that you even watched the show. All right, guys, as we say every week, in the meantime, and in between time.
Keep your sticks on the ice. Stay safe. Have a good night. Thanks, Grant. Cheers.
Cheers.